Chapter 9, Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. Correct? Javat?
Yeah.
Okay. Javat pritaktvam idam atmanaindriyartha maya balam bhagavato jana isha pasyer tavanna samsriti rasho pratishankrameta vyartha piduka nivaham bahati kriyartha. Javat, as long as. Pritaktum, separatism. Idam, this. Atmanaha, of the body. Indriya artha, for sense gratification. Maya balam, influence of external energy. Bhagavataha, of the personality of Godhead. Janaha, a person. Isha, oh my Lord. Pashyet, sees. Tavat, so long. Na, not. Samsriti, the influence of material existence. Aso, that man. Pratishankrameta, can overcome. Vyartha api, although without meaning. Dukkha nivaham, multiple miseries. Bahati, bringing. Kriya artha, for fruitive activities. Translation. O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries. Being influenced by your external energy, please repeat, O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries. Being influenced by your external energy. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The whole trouble of the living entity in material existence is that he has an independent conception of life. He is always dependent on the rules of the Supreme Lord in both the conditioned and liberated states. But by the influence of the external energy, the conditioned soul thinks himself independent of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead. His constitutional position is to dovetail himself with the desire of the Supreme Will. But as long as he does not do so, he is sure to drag on in the shackles of material bondage. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:55, Prajahati jada kamam sarvam partham anogatam. He has to give up all sorts of plans manufactured by mental concoction. The living entity has to dovetail himself with the Supreme Will. That will help him to get out of the entanglement of material existence. Om Ajnana-timiranda Sya-gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatyadesh Tarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhuvya vacha patitanam pavanevyo vaishnavevyo namo namaha. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 9, Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy, text number 9. So this verse is quite philosophical to start with, because there is often the indication that this world is miserable. Krishna says, the Acharyas explain, the Bhagavatam, so many of the Bhakti Shastris indicates that this material world is miserable. But here, this verse explains, Lord Brahma tells the Supreme Person, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. So, in other words, whatever happens to us in terms of the bodily existence, all those miseries do not have a factual effect for the soul. Right? Is that so? If we are not the body, and everything that happens to us, it generally affects our body and mind. But if we are not the body, then nothing really is happening to us. Is it? In one sense, it is. But so basically, this verse has 3 points mainly. That's one point, quite deep, quite philosophical. The second point is that the reason for those miseries, although they may not have factual existence for the soul, the reason for that to happen to the conditioned soul is because the jiva sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment. Right? So has this conception that this body, aham mameti, and whatever else the body obtains, whatever the body is related to, it's for sense enjoyment. That vision, that drishta, or understanding, it's what conditions that soul to experience material miseries. And the last point is that in order for the living entity to get out of that entanglement, needs to surrender to Krishna. That's the simple way of analyzing this. O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur elaborates on this word, or this concept, pritaktvam, separatism. We see ourselves separated from Krishna, a separatist. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati used to explain in his poem Vaishnava Ke, what kind of devotee are you? And then he explains that we see ourselves separated from the Lord, and that's why Bhagavatam, especially the first, shall we say, 4 cantos, explain in detail how the Lord is manifested in this material world, and everything is connected to Him. After the first canto is kind of setting the scene, if we step back and see the context of the Bhagavatam, the first canto establishes the principle of sishya, or discipleship. Like when you go to school, it's the first day at school. And then, if you can remember, first day in Kindi or one of those. And then the teacher gets you, and then your parents bring you in, and then they sit you, and then they say, okay, this is going to be your desk, and this is going to be your, partner or companion or whatever, and here you're going to put your lunch and books and fruits and whatever else. And then everything is about to start. So basically the first canto is like that. Establishes that principle that we are meant to learn from someone. And we have the questions by the sages, the first chapter. And then Sutta Goswami is going to address everyone. He's the teacher. And then the sages present their questions. And then Sutta Goswami starts telling the story of Narada Muni and Vyasadeva, like that. So we have guru, disciple, and it repeats like throughout the first canto. Even Krishna acts as the guide, as the instructor of the Pandavas. And then by his arrangement, things are organized. So grandfather Bhishma, he instructs the Pandavas. And it goes on like that until the end of the first canto, 19th chapter, where Sukadeva appears. And the story of Parikshit is there, and how he's cursed and everything. So basically, the first canto is setting the scene. Like we have in the Bhagavad Gita, one of the first parts, setting the scene. So the principle of sishya, of discipleship, is established there. This is how you learn things in the spiritual life. You go to someone who's more elevated than you, higher than you, and you surrender yourself to that person. And then you learn, you listen from him or her. Someone asked Prabhupada, I don't know if I told this, I was reading a conversation, and someone asked Prabhupada why Lord Chaitanya in his Shikshastaka didn't emphasize initiation. They asked Srila Prabhupada that. And he says, some people say, I think that's how the devotee phrased it. And he says, because those people haven't read properly Shikshastaka. He says, the principle of Trinadapi Sunicena, or humility, means that you accept a Vaishnava. That's the principle. So if we are humble, we are aiming at being humble, it means you accept. You accept others. Manadena, you give respect. Others are better than me. You give respect to everyone, But specifically, we have to accept the principle of guruship, discipleship, like that. So that's first canto. Then in second canto, that's elaborated. What do we find mostly in second canto? It's Narada asking Brahma. Let's remember that Narada has come earlier in the first canto, in chapter 4. He appears and then he instructs Vyasadeva. But where did Narada get that knowledge from? Right? Of course, in chapter 6, he tells the story how he was a little boy and then he became an orphan, and then by the association of the Bhaktivedantas, just previous to that, then he got that sense of bhakti. He got those instructions, and then when his mother left, then he just surrendered to the destiny of providence, and then he just took off. Like imagine this forest, he just walked, and then he was able to have darshan of Krishna. So in second canto, Narada is asking Lord Brahma, because Narada appears from Brahma. And then he's asking him, like a child sometimes asks the father, may ask the father, are you the most powerful person? Are you the richest? Like that. I remember my little boy, Gopal, he used to tell me when he was very little, and I'll take him to these adventure parks, what do you call it? Adventure World, I think it's called. And then he told me, Dad, can you buy this Adventure World? He liked it so much that he was, like very naively asking, can you buy the whole park? Like that. Children are sometimes like that. They don't have a sense of reality. So Narada is asking Lord Brahma, are you the supreme? Who gives you the strength? Who gives you the knowledge? Or are you the last one? Like that. So again, that same principle of discipleship, it's carried in second canto. And then Lord Brahma tells Narada what the Lord has instructed him. And then we find the famous Chatushlokis in chapter 9 of the second canto. So the principle is that Krishna is the Supreme, and that he empowers his devotees, his representatives, and then successively we learn from the previous masters, like that. That's the idea. So zooming out from what's happening here, and one easy way or easier way to understand Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita and other shastras is sometimes go by the title of the chapter. That's like when you have in your computer, you have a folder, and that folder, it's named, it's titled. And so Brahma's prayers for creative energy. This is third canto, of course. So after second canto, the process of creation, which is the platform in which we can perceive the Lord in everything. Otherwise, we will be confused. Tene Brahma Vridaya Dikavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya. The first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam explains that this knowledge was given to Adikavaye. Adikavaye is the first being. That's Lord Brahma. This spiritual understanding, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye, was manifested in the heart of Brahma. And otherwise, Muyanti Yatsuraya. Otherwise, we become confused. Srila Prabhupada explains, I don't know if in this or the next purport. He explains in these purports that the purpose of this Srimad Bhagavatam, the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam, is that we don't become degraded. Because this is what the material energy does. I believe it's in second canto that Lord Brahma explains to Narada that material energy has basically two moves, just like in martial arts. You know, sometimes people are expert in this and say, okay, first you have to kind of trick the person thinking you're going to do something, and then you, like that. So the two moves of material energy is that confuses us. Muyanti. Dhiras tatra na muyati. Krishna says, right? Shouldn't be confused. Dhiras tatra na muyati. Muyanti yatsuraya. That same word, it's repeated. And that's the warning. Because Maya acts like that. Make us think something that we are not. That's Maya. Maya. That's one move. And the other move is that it brings you down. So one is like, okay, this way, that way, and kicks you, and there you are. And then we lament. Shokam. Lamentation. The main word yesterday Maharaj was explaining, or there was a question, I think. The one word that Prabhupada used when he said many times, but in the famous video, one word, one line, one verse. Actually, that comes from Gita Mahatmya. And that one word is something that the Lord himself said to Mother Lakshmi. And then Lord Shiva repeats to Mother Parvati. When I heard that many, many years back, then I thought, oh wow, one word. And it was a line that we used in Sankirtan. You know, whenever we were going for book distribution, you know, many tricks, the book distributors know these tricks. Make the person touch the book, make the person hold the book, right? Open the book, look, and then you make them read or something, and you're, you know, all those tricks. And I didn't know where that came from, but eventually I came across this statement in the Gita Mahatmya in the very beginning, where Lord Krishna says, this Gita is not different from me, right? And I mentioned this before also, that one time they were discussing in era of the Hare Krishna explosion, where Radha Krishna deities were installed all over the world, and the devotees were coming and going from Jaipur ordering deities, and sometimes there are pastimes that these deities were carved for a certain temple, and then other devotees will arrive and they will pay them a little extra to the stapati, and then they arrange, and then this deity end up in this temple when it was meant to another temple. I mean, these things are now the inside stories. Something like this happened many years. I understand also. So Krishna said, okay, I'm going here. No, I better go here. And like that. There are many stories. There are, I don't know many, but a few stories I've heard like that. Even in Perth, they wanted a new set of deities of Jagannath. And so then that just right in the beginning of COVID, so they asked, and my wife was stuck there, so they asked her to get some deities. So she went around and started looking for deities. And then one devotee said, oh, I just got ordered this set of Jagannath deities for somewhere in Europe. And this person disappeared after COVID. They have made some down payment, but no connection. And, the world stopped at that time. And then they said, okay, so we can buy them. And it was just going on, and it took like, I don't know how many months for them to be repainted and eventually shipped, and finally the deities arrived in Perth. Sometimes Krishna plays these tricks like that. So going back to the point that the context of this chapter, Brahma is praying for creative energy. So in the Bhagavatam, it's like a package, and basically, to understand it simply, there are three areas. The Bhagavatam talks about Bhagavan, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It talks about bhakti. The process of bhakti is recommended there exclusively as the supreme means of advancement to please Krishna, right? And bhakta. Bhakta is the one who carries bhakti. That's what it means. I mean, etymologically in Sanskrit, those who are expert explain that that's what it means. Bhakti, it's the process, and bhakta is the one who carries bhakti. That's like a receptacle, like a water pot. Water pot means a pot that carries water. So bhakta is that person who carries bhakti. So those are the three areas that largely we may say are the descriptions. Every description, every section of the Bhagavatam can be classified within one of those three categories. So, what is that Lord Brahma is saying here? What is he referring to? A few weeks ago, there was descriptions about the beauty of Krishna. Aishwarasya samagrasya virasya jasasashriya. Parasara Muni describes the 6 opulences of the Lord. And it was described very nicely, different features. Even in some verses I was reading, Krishna says, even my color. Sometimes we glorify the deities and the deities' dress. And I remember our Bhakta leader used to ask us when we were in Bhagavatam class. He would say, and he had a tray of sweets, the Maha sweets. He will save them for Bhagavatam class. And then he says, nobody looked at the deities, but tell me what dress color the deities have. So we were like, because we wanted the sweets, right? So every morning we were there in darshan, paying attention to the deities, because that meant that we will have the sweets, the Mangalartik sweets. So these details are so important because it purifies our mind simply as that. Otherwise, our mind is dragged by topics of this material world. I remember one devotee, when I arrived in Perth, quite a special devotee. He will give Bhagavatam class, and he was also watching the news. I mean, obviously he was always, and he will tell us, oh, this prime minister and this disaster happened here, there. After that, I think I was convinced no more news, because it's so easy to get dragged by these things. And Prabhupada explains this again and again in several purports of his Bhagavad Gita, particularly, that we should absorb our mind in these descriptions of the Lord. You see the sun. One devotee asked me, we went to Perth recently, and it's a new devotee living in Gopinath Dham, Buddhajam Prabhu's ashram. And he asked me, oh, Prabhu, I heard about you giving Gita classes, this and that. So he asked me a question, how can I see Krishna everywhere? How can I see Krishna everywhere? Right? And I said to him, okay, are you serious about this? And he says, yes, I'm very serious. I said, okay, go in the Bhagavad Gita and find out how many times Krishna says, or how many times Krishna uses the analogy of the sun. First, what Krishna says, and then in the purports. And then when you have the answer, then we can talk. I just play hardball with him, but he's a nice devotee. So the idea of this description of creation is that we can see Krishna in this creation. In fact, in the beginning of the second canto was the first chapter titled, The First Step in God Realization. Right? And the second chapter, The Lord in the Heart. And the third chapter, Devotional Service. Right? And it's quite interesting to read those descriptions, because those descriptions are guiding us to do what? To meditate in Om, to meditate in the universal form. It is so nice how Prabhupada in his purports is able to bring everything to bhakti, like directly chant Hare Krishna, preach, see the form of the Lord, etc. There he says, like it's something that it's a regular practice for devotees. When you see the deities, the first thing that you should see, or the first part that you should see, is the lotus feet. And Prabhupada explains in that section of the Bhagavatam the importance of, because that shows humility, that you don't see someone face to face. In many of the Asian cultures, that's something that you generally don't do, right? I remember when living in Bangkok, I was doing service there, we were preaching brahmacharis, and they have many practices like that, social practices, norms, that you don't see it at the same level of someone that's older than you. You have to sit, lower. You don't have to put your feet in certain ways. Social cultures. Why? Because it shows respect. It's very important. Show respect. And respect is something that again is established in the first canto and throughout the Bhagavatam. It's a principle that if we don't apply, then we don't get what we are intended to get. Right? What's that verse? Petatvam saumya tat sarvam tatostat chat anugrahat bruyu snigdasasi sasya gurabo guhyam apyuta. Guhyam means, what does guhyam mean? Secret. Yes, guhyam. Raja vidya raja guhyam. So this bhakti is actually a secret. Sometimes I think, how is that I have the opportunity to open these books? Every devotee house, pretty much, you open Prabhupada's books, you find them easily everywhere now online for free, right? And then you have the opportunity to open Prabhupada's books, and his purports are there. It's like when Prabhupada was here, of course, I never had the opportunity to see him. That's my only regret in regards of this movement, that I came late and I wasn't able to see him. But imagine in those days, from what we read in the biographies, that you were able or allowed to enter into Prabhupada's quarters. It wasn't easy, from what I know. Maharaj, yeah, that was the standard thing. They had Tamal Krishna Maharaj most probably around, and some other secretaries, and they got the servant, and then they got the guard, and depending on where Prabhupada was, but that was the mood. Prabhupada wasn't easily accessible like that. But when we open these books, it's like just opening Prabhupada's room door and just entering there. 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, like in Mayapur when you go to Prabhupada's room, right? And then sometimes it's just open and no one is there because Pujari is somewhere. And then you just enter, pay obeisances, and there's a book and there's a dictaphone, and you can virtually, hypothetically, imagine you being with Prabhupada, listening to what he's saying and what he's writing and his reflections. And like he many times said, I didn't write these books. Krishna came and dictated every word like that. So why? Because the bhakta carries bhakti in his heart. And through bhakti, we can have Bhagavan. Otherwise, there's no way. So here, I was saying that an easier way to remember, understand Bhagavatam is by paying attention to the titles of the chapters. So Brahma here is praying to Krishna to be able to do his service. So the Bhagavatam, as I said, there are categories: Bhagavan, Bhakti, Bhakta, right? And then many things are there. There are geographical descriptions, astronomical descriptions. So many descriptions are there. Historical descriptions, right? Philosophical descriptions. But there's the devotional aspect. Because the main curriculum is bhakti. That's the main thing. Without bhakti, it's pointless. Shrama evam hi kevalam. So here Lord Brahma has been given a service to create, and he's praying to the Lord. The same thing in second canto. It's pretty much the same. It's more elaborated here. So he's praying to the Lord. Give me your mercy so I can do my service, right? And actually, when I have to give class, one of the practices that I have is I listen to other devotees giving classes on the same verse. It's quite interesting. Quite interesting. How so many angles, But the main point I could see, the pattern, is that the devotees hit on this nail, and that is bhakti. I have a service. I cannot be proud. Oh, I am the, whatever, manager or head, pujari or head something, or head of something. and therefore I need to be honored. I am in control. This is me and mine. Janasya moho jamham mameti. Bhagavatam warns us. So Brahma is praying. I have to do all this. Actually, what Brahma is doing, as it is explained in chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita. Anyone remember the title? Except Maharaj and the Prabhus, they are exempted. Yeah? Yes. Nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. Nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. Perhaps one of the most philosophical titles of the whole Gita. Nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. And nature refers to material nature. Nature refers to this prison house. Right? That's the explanation that Krishna gives to Arjuna, and Prabhupada elaborates on the purpose. So basically here, Brahma is creating or building the prison house. Right? That's what's happening. That's the overall context of this chapter. Give me the capacity to build this. And he's describing the people who are going to go into the prison house. It's like a future travel, time travel. He says, "Oh my Lord," he's reflecting, you can tell. Lord Brahma is reflecting on the kind of individuals that will enter this prison house. That means you and I, not someone else. He's talking about us, except the great souls present here. Oh my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet, as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy. So this external energy is alluring everyone. This is yours, this is your body, is for you to enjoy, private property and all the rest, right? You are meant to, it's your rightful claim. Enjoy. And then we are caught. So when it says nature refers to material nature, the prison house, enjoyer, it's like a joke. It's like a joke. It says, because Krishna explains about the enjoyer, the false enjoyer, that's us, that's the prisoners. And Krishna says, and there is another enjoyer, talks about himself. So the real enjoyer is Krishna, but the false enjoyer is the conditioned soul, us. And consciousness. Why consciousness? Because, like Lord Brahma explains here, according to our consciousness, we will be caught, or according to our consciousness, we will be free. And therefore, what is the highest consciousness? Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the key, right? What's the best way, the easiest way to get out of prison? Having the key. That's the idea. So Lord Brahma is reflecting on us poor souls who will enter into this prison house and will think it's not too bad. The sun is up, good day, I can enjoy, I can spend, and I can be happy. And then you can hear the doors of the prison house, the clank, closing on us, and here we are. Again and again and again. Samsara dhavana lalida loka. Everyone. It's not only caught, but it's burning. So just to end and to see if there's any questions. It is described that the living entity, it's been burned by the sufferings. It's in the working field, there's a term quite common, burnout. That burnout, that means people had enough, no more, and I deal with these sort of people every day when I work, because I work for staff of companies and organizations, and whatever problems they have, they call us. So there are many categories: functional burnout, etc., underlying burnout, like that. People are burnt out, had enough. They have been working 20, 30 years, and they are dissatisfied. They are depressed. They are, wanting to leave their job, wanting to leave their family. Some want to harm themselves, etc. Burnout. So how is it that the Lord explains in chapter 2 from text 14 onwards about the soul not being able to get burned, to be cut, to be killed, etc., for 20 or so verses non-stop. But then so much emphasis is on trying to avoid these miseries that we experience in this material world. Oh my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Right? So that's the first part. So the Lord Brahma is telling the Lord how these fools are confused, are conditioned by thinking that they are the body and they are meant to enjoy with that body, and that in itself, that sort of consciousness, is what brings them into the conditioned state of life. And unless that changes, they will never get out of the entanglement. But at the same time, the soul has nothing to do with that, right? That's your question, right? Remember we were discussing Bhagavad Gita, and you were asking why to bother, right? That was your question. Why to bother if we are not the body, right? I remember that question. Very philosophical question. Okay, so we stop here. We have a few minutes, and I wanted to ask the seniors if they can contribute in regards of this. Maharaj is leaving us. So, any questions, any comments on these points?
I was thinking the chapters in Prabhu's prayers for creative energy. So it seems like his prayers must have been successful because he's created a prison house that's so unbelievably well made and produced that we're hanging on like as tight as we can to the prison. We don't want to get it.
Right.
We just go round and round trying to find something.
It's a beautiful prison. And the seasons, and then we get all wrapped up in winter, and summer comes. It's quite funny. He plays a joke. Enjoyer, quote unquote. Prison house. Holiday.
and yet, as you're saying, you meet in your work, and then by the end of the life, you're just frustrated.
Yep. So being frustrated is good. I cannot say that in my work, otherwise I get sacked. I have to tell them, no, there's hope. We're going to get this right. We're going to turn things around. That's what I tell to people. And sometimes I feel very guilty. We're going to turn things around. You know what I do now? I don't know, someone told me this. I don't know if Buddhajam Prabhu told me. He says, if there's anything spiritual that you do for them, you should pray for them. Something like that, he told me. And now what I do is we put Prabhupada's japa, the recording, the red box, and I put them very low volume. I'm sure they cannot hear, but it's there constantly. It's true. We are here, burnt out, and it's incredible. So being frustrated for devotees is good. It's good. What do you think about that? Things are terrible in this temple. Nothing works properly. Have we heard that everywhere? I heard it everywhere. Always there's someone that has something to say about the local temple, anywhere. And I heard this from Swamis also. He says, Iksvaku, wherever you go to a temple, the first 2 weeks, it's heaven. Everything is beautiful, everything is wonderful. After 2 weeks or so, then you start hearing, but this Prabhu did this, and this Mataji did that, and this happens here, and this temple, they don't do that, and they should do this, they should do that, it goes on like that. So being frustrated is good. Because I remember Pishniyan Swami, Jagatarini Mataji, once she was telling the story when she joined. It's famous, a story. She was an actress, and then Prabhupada told her, you stay with me, I will protect you. Don't worry about it. And then she stayed. She just came to spend some time, like many people come here to Krishna village, etc. She just came, and then she was doing movies and things like that. And then someone brought the news to Prabhupada, a young actress, a successful actress, has joined. And then Prabhupada said, bring her to me. And then she came, and she was all nervous. And she tells, I heard this story many, many times, and she was all emotional about it. And Prabhupada, just like a father, said, now you have suffered enough, and you have come to the right place, stay with me, and I will protect you. So she was explaining like that Prabhupada just had this influence that I will take you out. And I heard many, or a few devotees at least, who said the same thing. Bhakti Charu Maharaj, I remember, 89 Gaur Purnima, I never forget. I wasn't even in the temple room because it was so crowded, and I was serving my Guru Maharaj, so I was hearing the class from upstairs. towards the courtyard in front of Radhamadava, and the loudspeakers were there. And he was telling the story that when he was initiated, I think it was first initiation, you're meant to give dakshin. You're meant to go and beg. Literally, you have meant to go. And I don't know if now people do that, but in Mayapur they do it. And you have to go and beg, and please give me something, like a beggar, like that, with the clothes, and give some coins, very humble, at least that day, and give it to your guru. That's a guru dakshin. And technically, then the initiation is finished. If the dakshin is not given, initiation is not complete. And Prabhupada also mentions that many times. So anyway, he was serving Prabhupada, but he was initiated after a few months in the movement. Prabhupada gave him first initiation. He was running around, serving Prabhupada, helping the devotees, doing different things, etc. So it was 10 o'clock at night, and in Mayapur, Vrindavan, at that time, it's dead. No one is out. It's rare. So then no one is there, no guest, and everyone has gone. And then he thought, dakshin, I didn't beg, I didn't ask for dakshin from anybody. So he goes to Prabhupada and tells Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, forgive me. I was so busy and I forgot to beg dakshin, to collect dakshin for you. And so that means that my initiation is not complete. Yes, Prabhupada, very innocently. And Prabhupada said, that's all right, in his wise way of conveying his mercy. He said, that's okay. You can give me your life. and then he said, you have given so many lives to Maya, and look what you have got. If you give me one life, I will take you back to Godhead. Just one life. And then he put his hand like this, like would you? And then after 4 months, I think, he was given sannyas. So you know the story. Maharaj is back to Godhead, back to Prabhupada. So we have to pray. Whatever service we have, we shouldn't be proud. We should be humble, and we understand that whatever capacity we have is because Krishna is there, the representatives are there. And the final thing, to conclude this, is that Prabhupada explains that when Krishna gave the service to Lord Brahma to build the world, he already gave him the potency or the capacity to do it. And Prabhupada explains in the purpose that whenever we get a service, although we should feel disqualified and undeserving, that feeling is something that the Lord appreciates, and by that feeling, the Lord reciprocates automatically by giving you the power to do it. By giving you the power to do it. Mati? Sorry, bro.
You mentioned guru discipleship and the importance of inquiry and serving and taking instructions from a guide, a spiritual master. And then in purport it says that one should give up this idea of
Independence
and mental
concoctions.
So we see sometimes in the past within our movement as well as any religious spiritual organization, we blind following and people give up their reasoning power and questioning power and they just blindly follow. So can you talk about how one should inquire and be submissive at the same time, not give up sentimental
Your common sense.
discernment?
Yeah, the initiation verse, it's in the Bhagavad Gita, 434. Tat vidhi pranipatina. Any devotee who is thinking to take initiation or has been initiated, we should all know that verse by heart, and particularly that purport by heart. And in that purport, Prabhupada says, blind following is condemned. It's right there. Let's go to the source. So we should give up our mental concoction, and therefore we ask our guru, and we ask the senior. Actually, that verse is in plural. Your spiritual masters, they, he said, Krishna, will show you. So that means that you have your initiating spiritual master, and that's great. He's a representative of Guru, of Krishna, and you have to worship him as God and everything else. But sometimes he's far. Sometimes he may not reply. Sometimes he may sick. Sometimes he may not be in the planet anymore. So then, therefore, you have other spiritual masters, official or not, Shiksha Gurus, senior devotees, people that are in line with the bhakti path. And then you ask from them, Prabhu, what do you think I should do? Mati, what do you think I should do? Not everyone, it's not a popular democratic poll, but just ask. Sincerely, you observe, he's very serious, she's very serious. Okay, I go and, I just have this query, I'm a little confused. And then he or she may guide you and say, Krishna says, Prabhupada says, in my case, this and that, or do this, do that, like that. Srila Prabhupada said to my Guru Maharaj, he said, in India, people have the habit of asking 10 times for directions, right? 10 times. Because he went and he said, where is the post office? It's a pastime, no time for the details. And then someone said, it goes this way. Someone says, that way, this way, that way, that way. And then Prabhupada said, ask 10 times, and then you will know the right answer. So if the Guru is not present, ask, 10 devotees, but ask a number of them. You may have your senior people. I have my 3 or 5. Then I go and ask, Prabhu, what do you think? I'm in this dilemma. Then they may guide you like that. So, but we shouldn't give up our capacity to reason. That's not accepted. Whatever it is in the Shastra, whatever it is in Prabhupada's purports, whatever our instructors have told us, we should go by that. Know that he's asking me to do something crazy, which is against the Shastra. That's not acceptable. That's nonsense. Okay, we stop here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.